You know, some stories are just so incredible they have to be true. And this is one of them. We're about to dive into the story of one man's absolutely harrowing escape from Iran. It's a journey about desperation, for sure, but more than that, it's about a kind of courage that just pushes human resilience to its absolute limit. So, where does a journey like this even begin? Well, it all started with a single, powerful thought. Imagine being just 18 years old, right in the middle of all the chaos after the 1979 Islamic Revolution. He looked around and just knew he couldn't build a life there. Not for him, not as a Jew, and definitely not as someone who wanted to be free. This wasn't some passing idea, you know? It was this deep gut feeling that he had to escape. And that one feeling? It was about to change everything. Okay, so once that decision is made, what's next? You don't just pack a bag and walk out. No way. This was the beginning of a whole year of careful, dangerous planning. We're talking about a massive life or death risk here. It took so much patience, so much secrecy, and, maybe the hardest part, finding someone, anyone, you could actually trust.
And the first plan? Wow, it sounds like something straight out of a thriller. It all came down to trusting a total stranger. This guy, a Pakistani smuggler named Khan, had one identifying feature. He was missing a finger. And the instructions? So specific. He had to fly to a border city called Zahardan, find a certain street corner, and just wait. Wait for a Toyota Jeep to pull up. The signal? Just one word. Bizarre. Talk about a leap of faith, right?
And then the day arrived. A year of planning, a year of waiting, and it all came down to this moment. The plan was a go. Every single nerve must have been on fire. Okay, this is where the story really gets intense. And at the beginning, it seemed like everything was going perfectly. He gets picked up, taken to a safe house, and there he meets 3 other young people, all on the same boat, all chasing that same dream of freedom. Then, midnight hits. They're hustled into a convoy of jeeps that just tears off into the desert, completely dark, no headlights. This was it. The escape was on. Can you even picture this? They're in these jeeps for hours, bouncing along these rough mountain paths in total darkness. Then, they switched to camels, silently moving through the desert. He said it was this strange mix, absolutely terrifying, but also kind of fascinating. It was like they were just shadows moving through the night, totally invisible to the rest of the world. So naturally, hope starts to creep in. He and the others, they can practically feel freedom on the horizon. They keep bugging the smugglers. Are we there yet? Are we across the border? And the smugglers, trying to keep him calm, would just point to some random hill and say, yeah, just a little further. They honestly thought they were about to make it. They were so close. But just when they thought they were safe, everything went wrong. In an instant, that hope just shattered. Suddenly, it's just chaos. The sound of gunshots cracks through the silence. Soldiers are screaming, "Stop or I will shoot!" The smugglers just vanish into the desert, but he and his friend, Hanukkah, they're caught. Turns out the border guards had been there the whole time, lying in wait. Just like that, the escape was over. It was a total failure. And what came next was just 5 weeks of absolute hell. Every single day, interrogations, a terrible mix of physical and mental pressure. And worse, no word from the outside world. They were completely cut off, stuck in this awful limbo, not knowing if they'd ever see their families again. Then, finally, after 6 long weeks, the commander tells them, "You're going to court." So they get to their first court date, and any tiny bit of hope they might have had just gets crushed. The judge, he barely even looks at their case file. He just waves his hand and says their case is going to the Supreme Court, which is, way, way more serious. To see their entire future dismissed so casually, in that moment, it must have felt like it was truly over. But then, something absolutely unbelievable happens. At the Supreme Court, the judge looks at their file, tells the guards to get their bags, and when the guards bring them back, he just explodes. He starts yelling at the guards, "Are you stupid? These people are free. Give them their suitcases so they can go." And that's it. A judge they'd never met, in a random fit of anger, sets them free. The handcuffs come off, they can just walk away. So he's back home in Tehran. Now, let's be honest, what would most of us do? After being ambushed, imprisoned, you'd probably just want to lie low, right? Give up on the whole idea. But not him. For him, that whole terrifying experience didn't put out the fire. It just poured gasoline on it. Yeah, instead of being broken by it all, he was more determined than he'd ever been. He just couldn't shake that feeling of being so close to freedom.
So while everyone around him was probably telling him to just forget about it, settle down, that fire inside was just burning hotter. This wasn't the end of his story. Not even close. It was just the start of chapter 2.
Okay, so this time, they learned from their mistakes. The second plan was totally different. Han, the smuggler, actually felt bad about what happened, and he personally planned a much safer route. There would be no flights this time. Instead, they'd be hidden in the back of a truck, driving all the way from Tehran. And Han himself was going to manage every single step. It was slower, way more cautious, but a whole lot smarter.
And so, with the lessons from that first failed attempt fresh in their minds, and with this incredible new determination, he and his friend Hanukkah, along with a small group, set off. This was it, the final journey.
Their ride this time? Not exactly a luxury coach. It was an old truck packed with watermelons. He and Hanukkah were squeezed into this tiny little space right in the middle of all the fruit. For 3 whole days, they had to put up with blazing hot days and freezing cold nights. It was slow, it was miserable, but it worked. They made it to the border without anyone even knowing they were there.
4. Just think about that number for a second. 4. Because that's how many days and nights they had to walk after they got out of the truck. 4 grueling days of hiking through dangerous mountains, with the smugglers checking every single foot of the path ahead. I mean, the exhaustion must have been unreal. But this time they made it across. They were in Pakistan.
But they weren't out of the woods yet, not by a long shot. They're on a train to Karachi, and suddenly, police get on and start checking everyone. An officer comes up to him and starts yelling in a language he doesn't understand. And in this moment of pure panic, he has this flash of genius. He just pretends he's deaf and mute, starts waving his hands around frantically. The officers just get confused, then annoyed, and eventually they just move on. Incredible. That quick thinking saved him. Again.
Their last stop, their final safe house, was in Karachi. It was the home of a woman named Mrs. R, and he says he will never, ever forget her. She was like an anchor in all this chaos. She'd welcome refugees with such warmth, organize food and a place to sleep, and she'd worry about them like they were her own kids. She was the one who got him his temporary passport and set up the very last step of his journey to freedom.
You know, that whole ordeal was 40 years ago. It's amazing to think about. So after all of that, the planning, the capture, the fear, and then finally success, how does he see it all now, looking back after all this time? Well, he made it to Israel. And there, he built that life he had dreamed of for so long. He got married, has a wonderful family, 3 kids. And his friend Hanukkah, the one who was with him through thick and thin, he ended up getting to America. After all that struggle, he finally found the freedom he risked absolutely everything to get. And that really brings us to the heart of it all. When he looks back now, he asks himself, where did I even get that kind of courage when I was so young? And his answer, I think, is something we can all learn from. He says it wasn't about being some kind of superhero who wasn't afraid. It was simply about having no other choice. It was the kind of strength that life just gives you when your back is against the wall. And that's just an incredible testament to how resilient we can be.